Hi, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Delighted on this episode to be talking with a creator that I've been looking for some time to talk to for a little while now, and that is Franco. May I call you Franco? Is that all right?
Absolutely, please do.
All right, all
I've been
right.
I've been called a lot worse in life, so Franco's actually acceptable.
I've
Uh,
probably been called worse today
yeah.
alone. So yeah, yeah, sounds great. So welcome to the podcast, and I usually like to start by just name dropping a few titles, but then you can talk about whatever projects have been most meaningful to you. The one that I think makes its way into a question is Dead Man Tales, the spooky tales. But you've put your stamp on a variety of characters from Archie meets Batman 66, Oh Yeah Comics, Ambush Bug, Ambush
Mhm.
Bug being one of those, and of course you have is it little bitty characters with Dark Horse like Hellboy, The Mask,
Right,
Battlestar Galactica.
the itty bitty characters with them, Dynamite, the Battlestar Galactica was little Battlestar Galactica.
Hmm.
They just like throwing those little tiny small monikers in front of anything kid stuff that we do apparently.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love it at any age, so I think it
Mm,
works. But I love the
well, thanks.
style and the creativity.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for saying yes. I'll also mention before we ask the first question that you were just telling me you've spent a career in teaching as well.
Hmm.
So this is a podcast where many of the listeners are likely teachers, and so I just want to shout that out. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah,
Sure.
absolutely,
Yeah,
a
I was
fellow educator.
yeah, high school art teacher for 24 years. I just retired from teaching in June to jump into comics full time. When I first started teaching is kind of when I started my comics career professionally, or
Hmm.
actually unprofessionally, I guess, because I was just self-published back then. But then things started taking off, with our own characters, and then being hired by DC Comics to do Tiny Titans,
Hmm.
and for the you know the last 20 something years, people have been saying, well, you're going to have to choose one or the other. You're going to have to quit one or the other eventually. And
Hmm.
I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll have to, but I guess after 24 years, that became true. So so
Yeah,
I kind
yeah.
of I kind of quit the teaching or retired from teaching just to kind of just do comics full time for a while.
Yeah, yeah. Well, retirement is the best way to leave a profession. So
Mhm.
absolutely. And I'm sure that you live on in a lot of student minds as well.
Yeah, and it's really great when I happen to run into um a few, and I actually did at New York Comic Con, which was a couple weeks ago. I had a couple of students come up and speak to me, and it's always great to see um, those kids that you remember, that you liked, that you that
Right.
that were made an impact on me as well. So
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back before teaching and as you're working through comics, my question is what do comics allow you to do creatively? What makes them this unique way of storytelling that has attracted you?
um, because you can do things in the comics genre with the comic page that you really can't do anywhere else.
Hmm. Hmm.
I've written prose. I've written scripts for screenplays and stuff. I was an actual film major back in college, um, pre pre-teaching days. I got my art degree and my communications degree for film. Um, so comics can allow you to do something with a really big budget
Hmm.
that you can't do, in film. You could do, but would cost a lot of money. Studios would kind of balk at the project. You can really let your creativity and your imagination flow through comics. You can do things with cartoon characters, with real characters, well, realistic characters, not real characters, or even real characters if you're doing biographies, I guess, which I've never really delved into. But there's a real freedom there within the pages, within the borders, that
Hmm.
you can make them any size. You can tell your story with unlimited budget. You can tell your story with unlimited creativity. You don't have to scale yourself back in terms of um, what you want to put on a page. I, I assume that you could do that with prose as well, but I've always been a very visual person, so the writing and art really go hand in hand for me, and that really stands out on the comics page for me.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. You've talked about, I've listened to a couple of interviews with you, and you've talked about how comics were this sort of way of getting into language and growing as a reader. So I think it's the teacher side of me that wants to say any words of experience from your experience for teachers who might be thinking about comics and maybe helping teachers kind of see them in a new light as something they can use in their classrooms.
Absolutely. I've had comics in my life for the entirety of my life. I learned to read and speak English because of comics.
Mm-hmm.
My parents didn't speak English when I was little. They were Italian. They spoke broken English, um, and I learned to read. And when I went to school, I didn't speak proper English or English fully. I kind of like had a mix of both. But they really helped me learn to read. They helped with my love of artwork because I
Mm-hmm.
would draw as a little kid. I have heard and seen and spoken to people that won't allow comics in the classroom, and I always tell them that's a huge mistake. Kids are so drawn to the words and pictures. If they don't know the words, they can kind of derive context from the pictures, and it's just such a good way for them to extrapolate meaning from that. And I've used them all the way up until high school. I would incorporate them in my own classroom. I
Mm-hmm.
actually taught a cartooning class in my high school for a couple of years, and they're just such a great visual medium. They become something that mean a lot to students in terms of again, visual and words that you can't do with any other real medium.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I remember even as a high school student myself, not really catching the full grasp of Shakespeare and finding a comic on um, um, Macbeth and being able to kind of like really follow a little bit better that way.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just a whole slew of things that you can do with comics as a visual medium, as a written medium in the classroom, and I fully um, endorse teachers bringing them into the classroom. It always boggles my mind when teachers don't want them,
Mm-hmm.
whether
Mm-hmm.
they be elementary or high school, and disregard them as something that's not a real um, learning tool or an educational tool. I just never fully understood that, and whenever it's crossed my path, I've always, fully endorsed and lobbied hard for comics to be in that classroom.
Yeah, yeah. I will second that, and I'll also say there's lots of great research out there that I hope folks will explore as they kind of explore that question a little bit further.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Anything else that you wanted to tag there before I mention Dead Man again and some of the creative spaces that you've been
No,
in?
I wholeheartedly agree that it should be in education. I've spoken to many librarians,
Hmm.
across the country that carry my books and other graphic novels. I've watched the graphic novel section in the libraries go from non-existent to like full-blown sections in bookstores as well, where they never used to be. So now I'm dating myself and showing you how old I am by by knowing that these things weren't in libraries and bookstores years ago, and how much they've grown in popularity. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And not dating yourself at all. I think the only way you do that is if you mention Blockbuster these days or something
mm,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
well,
gonna.
is it? Didn't they say Netflix is going to open like brick and mortar rental stores now?
I
And
know.
that was called Blockbuster, wasn't it? But
Yeah.
yeah, so
Everything comes full circle, I
I
guess.
guess, yeah,
You can go get those little paper envelopes again, I guess,
yeah,
maybe.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. So you, as I mentioned, you've worked in the world of Dead Man and a
Mhm.
variety of characters. I'll say again Batman 66 just because that was so big for me growing up as a TV show, as a character. Um, so curious about worlds that you would want to create in next. What would be next for the Franco Vision, if I can call it the Franco Vision?
Oh, I like the Franco vision.
Hmm
Um,
hmm
yeah, there's a bunch of um, things that I'm looking at, a bunch of things that I'm involved with, bunch of creator-owned things that I have in development that I'm going to be working on now that this is my full-time focus. Um, Unfortunately, I can't mention some of the things that I'm kind of
Absolutely.
associated with until they announce them. One place I've never worked was Marvel Comics.
hmm
I would love the chance to jump into um, any of the characters there. Spider-Man was always my top favorite because I just love Spider-Man. Spider-Man, Batman were always my favorites. Superman close second or third within there,
hmm
and I've gotten to work on those guys, but I've never gotten to work with Spider-Man. But yeah, there's a whole realm of worlds and possibilities that I would love to dive into at some point. So who knows what the future holds?
Yeah, yeah. Well, may it be full of many characters in the Franco Vision.
I hope
I'm
so.
just gonna keep using that term.
I like it. I'm going to adopt it and use it. I'm going to write it down right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do it, do it. So I know the name Art Baltazar has been part of your
Yeah,
creating history.
I know
Um,
that guy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Been in touch with him. Um, Curious about folks, including Art, that have been positive collaborators along the way, mentors, friends, things of that nature, supporters.
Yeah, there's a bunch. Comics is the comic book you know world is very um, open, friendly world. I know some people that may be trying to get in don't feel that way, but I've always had I've always had very friendly conversations with other creators. I've been very fortunate to be mentored by uh, people in comics. I've been very fortunate to have met and have as one of my best friends Art Baltazar, who is, you know, an artistic genius in my mind. And being able to develop stories and write stories with him is always fun.
Mhm,
I
mhm,
love writing and creating on my own. I love writing and creating with others, uh, and I really like writing and creating with art because it's always fun. We always wind up laughing.
mhm,
We've never worked on anything too serious. We have on a couple of projects, but even that's fun because we wind up laughing a lot. And there's always a humor slant to the stories that we do, even if they're in the serious realm. Like when we did, Billy Batson and the Magic of Shazam. That was one of my favorite runs with him.
mhm,
We did um, Green Lantern runs. We did a bunch of stuff, and it was just always fun. Always fun. And we have another couple of projects coming up. One project that I can talk about that I did with him is coming out in January. It's called Teen Titans Go to the Library.
mhm, mhm,
So that was a lot of fun, and I got to draw a lot of that book, which I haven't really done for DC, mainly because of my my day my day job teaching didn't really kind of afford the time. But this was done during COVID when we were kind of mostly home, and so that I'm looking forward to that coming out and seeing what people think. And we have another project, a couple of projects that haven't been announced that we're working on, and a bunch of stuff like I said that I'm working on my own. So we're always crossing paths, always intersecting back and forth.
Love it, love it. It's good to find somebody that you connect with, collaborate with, and I'm glad to hear that there's more of that on the way.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And one of the sort of themes that's running under the surface of our talk seems to be librarians and the power of the library. So, loving that as well. As a
Yeah.
former librarian, current teacher.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what we do as educators, what librarians do, what teachers do is so so understated in the impact of what we have on kids and the outcome of what they can potentially be.
Hmm.
Uh, it's criminal the way that we're treated sometimes. It's criminal in the way that we're paid most of the time.
Hmm.
So, I think people need to really appreciate what goes into the education world, and there's not a lot of people that will voice that appreciation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I agree 1000%, and hope all of the former students that I have that are now teachers out there are also hearing that as well.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah. So by means of a final question, I promised you a brief talk, but we can talk through anything that we might have missed as well. Any spaces where listeners can go and kind of follow along with the projects to come, the work that you're doing, spaces where they can go and get resources to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, everything will connect to me. You can Google me, Franco, and I'll come up somewhere, unless it's in Spain or anything like that. That's not me. That's a different Franco.
Mhm,
Uh,
mhm.
but if you Google Franco and comic books, I'll come up. But mainly where you can get all information from me is Blind Wolf Studios. It's BLINDWOLF Studios, uh, um, .com. You can link to my Patreon there. You can link to my big cartel there. Uh, I believe there's a link for the YouTube stuff that I'm doing as well. And just Google me and look for me on social media. So I'm all over the place.
Sounds great. Sounds great. I
Yeah,
will link to that in this video as well, and I'll link to your YouTube on this YouTube. It'll
yeah.
be an
It's oh
interconnected
yeah,
YouTube.
yeah. It's oh yeah, comics YouTube is what I use. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Because the thing we've not mentioned that I'll recommend folks go and explore on, I think Dollar Bin Bandits talked to you about this a good bit, the Aya Comics store and the work that
Mhm.
you've done in that way too. So you have been a busy man in
Yeah,
many ways.
yeah, yeah. One of the themes that kind of runs through my life is I'm is a stubbornness, like I'm I'm descended from Southern Italians, and we're famously known for having a very hard-headed, we're called hard-headed, capodura, which is a um very stubborn, um angsty, type of personality. Never tell me never tell me I can't do something, because then I'm going to want to go out and do it, so
Hmm.
people told me that I wouldn't, I can't do comic books. People told me I wouldn't be able to open a comic store. People told me lots of different things that I couldn't do, and that just makes me annoyed and um,
Yeah.
obstinate, and want to do them. So I've done all those things.
Well, much to the benefit of your students and your audience and everyone. So, uh, much appreciated, Franco, and thanks for the time. Did we miss anything you want to make sure to mention?
No, I think we got it all. Uh, but yeah, I'm out of a job now, so if you'd buy my comics, that'd be great.
Yeah, yeah. We can please buy comics. We'll put that at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thanks.